Hallo Studenten, I am so glad that you are watching this video. Regardless if this is the first video that you've ever watched for learning German, or if you've been working at German for a while, there is something for everyone here because we are not looking just at vocabulary. Yeah, we've got that too, but on top of it, there is grammar and pronunciation and cultural insights that are all woven throughout these videos, and those topics are frequently glossed over. You might not get that anywhere else. But here I am sequencing everything, trimming off the fat, teaching you exactly what you need to know when you need to know it. For example, rather than learning 3 different ways to say essentially the same thing, I'm going to teach you the one way that you can use in all of those different circumstances. I also have a quiz that I have made custom just for this video, so pay close attention to the information so you can nail it at the end. We are going to start with looking at literally my most favorite word in German that you will use all the time. The very first German word that you should learn is bitte, which means please. Bitte, bitte. Then the next word that you should learn is danke, which means thank you. Danke, danke. Now, pronunciation-wise, notice 2 things here. The E's at the ends of both of these words, and this is just a general point for German, they are pronounced, okay? They're not silent like we frequently have in English, but the sound they make is just this really standard, ugly sound, right? Like literally okay? Bitte. Danke. Now, final point with the danke, notice the sound the A is making here, right? It's not some sort of danke or something like that. You have to have a real right? Danke. Okay, so now we need the final word in this sequence, right? Please, thank you, you're welcome. The good news is you already know how to say you're welcome in German because it's the exact same word as for please. That's right, in German, bitte also means you're welcome. Now, just as bitte can mean both please and yes, and danke can mean both thank you and no, so bitte, again, now in the sense of saying you're welcome, this is also multifunctional because it can mean not just you're welcome, but also go ahead or here you go, in the sense of, say, someone is opening a door for you. They might say bitte to you, meaning like you go first, right? Or a waiter is bringing food to your table. He'll set it down and say bitte. And sure, like it's weird to our ears to think of that as meaning exactly you're welcome. It makes more sense to think of it as meaning like here you go, here's the food that you ordered, right? So bitte is just a very versatile word. But we're not done yet. So bitte, it's one simple word, my favorite word, right? It means not just please and yes and you're welcome, go ahead, here you go, but it has this final meaning of pardon, right? As in someone has said something to you that you didn't quite hear, or you heard it but you didn't quite understand it. You can say bitte, meaning pardon, in order to get them to repeat themselves. Now, in the same vein of bitte meaning pardon, right? When you need someone to repeat something you didn't hear or understand, there are 2 other words that a well-mannered person uses, and they are Entschuldigung and sorry. So that is Entschuldigung and sorry. Right? Sorry, Entschuldigung. So I've given you the translations of excuse me and sorry, but it's not enough to just see these 3 different English translations. You have to understand, how do Germans use these 3 different words, because it might not be exactly what you expect. So the first difference between bitte and Entschuldigung is that you will say bitte if someone has spoken to you and you're responding to indicate that you didn't understand. But if you're the one who's actually speaking first, if you will, right, you're interrupting someone, then you would say Entschuldigung. The distinction that is made between Entschuldigung and sorry is that you use Entschuldigung whenever you haven't actually done something wrong, and sorry is when you've actually done something wrong. So, for example, An American sitting in a group of people or in a row at a concert or something, if we have to get up and get out of the row or we're leaving the circle of people to go use the restroom or whatever, we might be accustomed to saying sorry in this circumstance. But in German, the correct term would be to use Entschuldigung, right? You're excusing yourself from the group, you're excusing yourself out of the row, right? So Entschuldigung, not sorry. Sorry, right, is used when you've done something wrong, like you broke someone's vase of flowers, okay? Now this brings up the point that we have another important way of saying sorry in German, but this time in the sense of sharing in someone else's pain, right? I'm sorry for you and this thing that you're going through. And the way that you say that in German is das tut mir leid, okay? So you say sorry if you have committed a wrong of some kind, but if you have a person who is suffering something, right, and it's not your fault, you can say das tut mir leid, essentially sorry for you, or literally that does me pain, right, because you're joining in their suffering. Okay, so now a quick pronunciation point on this phrase. Das tut mir leid, right? That does me pain. I want you to pay attention to the leid part and notice two things. One, that the D at the end is making a T sound, light, okay? And that the EI, when they're together like this, says I, like the eye on your face, okay? So leid, das tut mir leid. Now, can we use a similar version of das tut mir leid in order to apologize as opposed to being restricted just to saying sorry? Yes, that is possible, but there are also other ways that we can say please and thank you and you're welcome. You don't need to learn them right now, okay? You need to learn these most basic forms of manners that you can use across the board in all situations, doesn't matter who you're talking to, right? That's the smart way to start. So that's why we're learning just a simple bitte, danke, bitte with our Entschuldigung and our sorry and our das tut mir leid. You have all of your bases covered now for speaking politely in German to anyone, and you can learn those additional versions, all of those nuances down the road. Now remember, I do have a quiz especially created for this lesson material, but before you take it, you need to actually continue on watching the next lesson video, which is going to be on how to express basic needs of needing, wanting something, directions, places, etc. See you there next. If you've been working at German for a while with, a popular app such as Duolingo, then you've come across these das and dies and also the word das, right, as all meaning the. There are more words yet that translate to the. This is all a matter of what is called noun gender. I have other videos on this topic, but for right now, if you are focusing on learning just travel German, which is okay, there's a time and a place for that. If that is your focus, then you're going to want to just memorize some basic phrases like this and not worry about the der, die, das business just yet. It may also be helpful to learn how to say where is, wo ist der Bahnhof, or ein Supermarkt, or die whatever Straße, yeah, die Schillerstraße. Okay, now insider tip, word to the wise, if you are focusing on travel German right now, then I highly recommend that you have a very short, very concise, basic, pocket-sized picture dictionary on you so that when you're asking for directions, where's the train station, wo ist der Bahnhof, that the person that you're talking with can just point to it on the map for you. Because if they start giving you verbal directions, of turn left here, go this many blocks straight, now turn right, whatever, you're not going to understand that anyway. So if you're focusing just on travel German, be prepared to use a lot of gestures and pointing at things in order to get your point across, which is fine, right? It's going to get you excited for really, really learning German once you come home and you prepare for that next trip. Now, in the meantime, time a few other travel German phrases for you, this time dealing with time and money. You might want to ask, how much does this cost? Which is, wie viel kostet das? Wie viel kostet das, right? So notice the V sound here, the F sound here, that this is making an E sound. V, also it's the same here. Wie viel kostet das? Now, could we substitute the das with something specific? You know, how much does this apple cost? How much does this aspirin cost? Of course we could, but that would require learning not only vocabulary, but grammar. And if you don't want to get into that just yet, of course I have videos to help you when you do, but if you don't want to get into that just yet, you can learn this one basic phrase that you can use all the time, so long as you can point to or otherwise indicate what the this is that you're talking about, right? So picture in your picture dictionary or what have you. Wie viel kostet das? Then we also have the important phrase, wie spät ist es, right? Wie, right, same word that we have here above. Wie spät ist es? What time is it? Literally, how late is it, okay? But be prepared to want to look at someone's watch, you know, or maybe they're showing you the time on their phone, because you might not even know quite enough German to understand a response, you know, of how late it is, right? Two other important starter phrases for you to learn right now are ich möchte and ich brauche, right? I would like, I need, ich möchte, ich brauche. So of course now you have to fill in the blank with something, whether that is ich möchte ein Bier or ich möchte ein Stück Marmorkuchen, a piece of marble cake, or ich brauche eine Zahnbürste, ich brauche Hilfe, right? So there are all sorts of words that you can fill in the blanks with here to talk about what it is that you need or you would like. Now, learning how to say nochmal bitte or langsamer bitte is really useful if you have enough German knowledge that there's any chance whatsoever that you will understand that response if it is indeed repeated, or if it's repeated more slowly. But if that's not the place that you are at, right, which is very reasonably not the place if you are staying restricted to German, travel German for right now, then you need to be prepared to just shift over to plan B, right, your contingency plan, as soon as possible. And the contingency plan is asking, sprechen Sie English, right? Do you speak English? Sprechen Sie English, right? So notice that this is making a Z sound, sprechen Sie, and then not English, but English. English, if you really want to say this properly. Sprechen Sie English. Now, if you pose that question, you will hopefully immediately get an English response from the other person. But if you don't, and they say something in German that you didn't understand, it doesn't matter, because you can ask a clarifying question. You can ask, spricht hier jemand Englisch, right? Does anyone here speak English? Spricht hier jemand Englisch, right? So notice pronunciation-wise that this J here is making a Y sound. Spricht hier jemand English? So at this point, whomever you're speaking with will either switch to English, or else they'll go find someone else who can speak English, or they'll still say something in German which you still might not understand. And if that's what happens, then you can simply say, Danke trotzdem, and be on your merry way to go find someone else who can assist you. So that was Danke trotzdem. Danke trotzdem. As an insider tip, if you find yourself needing to use this contingency plan of speaking English instead of German, try to find someone from a younger generation. They basically all speak English generally quite well. If you, however, are really committed to wanting to learn some vocabulary that you can fill in the blanks of the phrases that I've given you, the wo ist, where is, the whatever, or ich möchte, ich brauche, brauche, I would like, I need. That's wonderful, and you can totally do that, but you're going to need some pronunciation help. We got into a handful of points in this video, but the next lesson video is dedicated strictly to pronunciation. I'll see you there next. First, let's look at some consonants. J's in German make Y sounds. So like you say in a basic yes is the word ja, ja. Then V's make F sounds, like the number vier is spelled V-I-E-R, vier. W's now in turn make V sounds, such as the word Wasser for water. And then we have Z's that make a ts sound, right? A TS sound, ts, as in the number 10. Okay, this one being particularly difficult for many English speakers because you really, really have to enunciate. You have to get that the T sound there first. 10, okay? Now, specifically at the beginning of words, S's in German will make Z sounds, such as the number 6. Then we also have STs and SPs that both have an H sound inserted there, so that you have st and sp, as in stop, or the bank Sparkasse. There are also some special endings, right? When we have D's or B's or G's at the ends of words, or NS's at the ends of words, they make particular sounds. So a D will make a T sound, such as in the word Abend, which means evening, right? Guten Abend, right? T sound. Or in the word halb for half, that's making a P sound, not a B sound, halb. A G making a K sound, such as in Tag, guten Tag. And then for the number eins, right? NS right there, but it's making, there's a T sound inserted there, eins. Now, I know we're just 3 slides into this lesson and it's already feeling like, whoa, this is a lot, but 2 things. 1, I have a printable PDF for you of all of the pronunciation tips from this lesson, so make sure you get that for yourself. But then on top of that, I also recommend that you make a point of listening to authentic German in movies, shows, podcasts, music, especially music, anything where you can hear the German and see it written out at the same time, and then you'll very quickly make all of these connections between the pronunciation differences. You'll have that all internalized before you know it, so don't stress. There are a few consonant clusters that make some sounds we don't expect as English speakers. So a QU says kv, as in the word Quittung, which is the bill, like asking for the bill at a restaurant. A TH makes just a T sound, as in theater, right? Not theater, theater, right? Just a T sound. And then the ZW saying zv, as in the number zwei, spelled like so. A very important cluster to be on top of in German is the CH. There is both a hard and a soft version of CH. The hard one, as in the number acht, right? So that's acht, right? That quintessential guttural German sound, acht. But the CH also has a soft sound, such as what we hear in the word ich, meaning I. So it's kind of like the English words huge or humid, if you really emphasize the start of them. Ich. Right? So lots of people will say ish. That can also be regional, or even ich, make it hard like that. That's another regional difference. But standard high German is ich. So if you can practice getting that with the huge ich, that's really, really awesome. Then we also have an IG, which will make the same soft sound as in ich. And we would see this if we use another number for an example, say 20. Right? So it's not making a G sound at all, right? It sounds exactly, it's a soft CH sound just like in the word ich. 20. More clusters for you. We have a GN, a KN, and a PF. These are easier in the sense that they make the sounds we expect, but they make both of the sounds, okay? So that's the thing. English has a lot of silent letters and German really doesn't. You just say everything. So you have to say die Gnade, right? You say the G and the N sound, die Gnade. You have to say das Knie, right? You say that K sound, das Knie. You say der Pfeffer. You have to get that P sound in there first. Der Pfeffer. Okay, so now also notice that I have these words all color-coded, right? Die Gnade, das Knie, der Pfeffer, right? This is looping back to something we've touched on in previous lesson videos about noun gender, that we have 3 different ways to say the, right? So we're saying the here, but it's a feminine the, and then it's a neuter the, and then it's a masculine the. Subject of another video, but just wanted to point it out to you here. I do also get into all of the necessary nitty-gritty of noun gender in my paid online courses. But for now, staying focused on pronunciation and moving on to vowels, we have talked in the video on manners about an A saying a true ah sound, right? And then an E at the ends of words, like in danke, right? Spelled like this, we have to say that E, right? So it'll make an sound when it's in the middle of a word, like if we're saying bet, which means bed. So it's bet. But if it's at the end of a word, like in danke, it's just going to say danke. Now for some vowel clusters, right? Vowel combinations. An EI says I, and IE says E, or we can say that in these 2 combinations, the second letter says its name, okay? So it's English name. And EI says I, right? Like the letter I. And IE says E, right? The letter E. So you see, and you'll see these these vowel combinations all over the place in German. So I and E. Then we also have ow, right? So AU says ow. That's also literally how they say ow, as in ouch, right? That's how they spell it, ow. Then we have both an EU and an umlauted AU that say oi. Some examples with words that have all of these combinations in them would be that we have the number drei, right? Saying I. We have the number sieben, right? So you hear that E right there. Then no number here, but common word house, right? Das Haus, a neuter noun. Then the number 9, right? Where we get that oi sound in there. Now looking at that cluster, the umlauted A and a U brings up the very important point that in German we do have 4 special characters. We have 3 umlauted vowels, right? The 2 dots above them are called umlauts. Sometimes in writing, if someone's writing fast, they might do just a line above them instead of the 2 dots, so that's fine too. The umlauted A can make 2 different sounds, right? All of the vowels actually make 2 different sounds. There's a long sound and a short sound. You were introduced to the long umlauted A sound, which sounds like the word may, right? So the A in May, when you learned the phrase wie spät ist es, right? How late is it? But then there's also the short version, like in the plural for man, which is Männer, right? So that's making a different sound. Wie spät and Männer, okay? Then with this umlauted O, umlauted U, I mean, this is getting a little outside of the scope of this video, but we do have some numbers that I'll show you that have those sounds. So the number 12 has the umlauted O, 12, and then the number 5 has the umlauted U, so 12 and 5. And then finally, we have the double S. It's called the S set. Pronunciation-wise, it simply makes an S sound, such as in the number 30. Okay, but what I want to point out to you, it's just, I don't know, it's a teacher thing, I guess, is that even though it initially looks like a capitalized B, it is not a capitalized B, and you can't write it as a capitalized B. You have to start from the bottom and come up. And that's how you do it. Remember to check out both the custom quiz that includes questions on pronunciation and to also print off the PDF that I created with all of these same pronunciation points in it for you. In the next lesson video, we are going to look at numbers. I showed you many numbers as examples of the various consonant and vowel clusters and other sounds. We're going to cover all the rest of the numbers that you initially need to learn in German in the next lesson video. If you watched the previous lesson video on pronunciation, we covered a lot of numbers in order to share with you some of the pronunciation differences between German and English, and I want to review those for a moment. So notice various combinations like the EIs that say I as in eins, and zwei and drei, right? But then remember that we have that T sound between the N and the S here at the end of the word, eins. Then we have the zw here, zwei. Then here with vier, we have the V making the F sound, and now the I and the E are switched around. So the second one says its name, vier, right? It says E. Then we have one of those special characters, fünf, yeah? With the umlauted U, the S making a Z sound at the beginning of both sechs and sieben. We have a hard CH sound in acht. We have the EU saying oi in neun. We have, again, that TS sound that we really have to enunciate. It's the same as the NS here, right? Saying zehn, right? Here it just has the N in front of it, eins, yeah? Then elf, nothing too special there, but then zwölf, yeah? With that umlauted, oh, zwölf. This is how you're going to learn numbers. It's going to be a game, right? So it's going to be quite fun. And you're going to practice, you're going to learn, truly internalize those 12 numbers, eins bis 12, right? 1 to 12, but you're going to learn the numbers out of order. Okay, so the beauty of learning them out of order via this special game that I'm putting together for you is that you'll make a direct connection to each one of these numbers instead of learning them just in a sequence, right? The last thing you want is to be in the middle of a conversation and to be like they're counting on your fingers until you get to, oh, sieben, that was the one I wanted, right? Counting on your fingers, oh, wait, a 10, right? You want to be able to jump directly to whatever number it is that you need to say, just like you do in your native language. And you can do that via this process of learning the isolated numbers, which then, of course, you'll be able to properly sequence too, if that's what you want, if you're counting from 1 to 10 or what have you. But this way you'll be able to directly jump to whatever number it is that you want to say in a given moment. Okay, so here we go. The first number is fünf. Fünf. Okay? Zwölf. Important. I encourage you at this stage to not repeat the numbers after me. It's so tempting. I know it. You were probably doing it. That's very natural. But I encourage you to listen only, and you could go through this video again to practice saying them. But at this stage, in any case, don't say them. We will say them together later on in the video, but right now, just listen, okay? And I'm going to ask you to find these numbers for me, okay? So we have fünf and zwölf. Zwölf, okay? Wo ist die zwölf? Da. Wo ist die fünf? Richtig. Wo ist die fünf? Hier. Wo ist die zwölf? Genau, Richtig. Okay, so I'm going to be asking you to find these numbers. If you can, point directly on your screen of whatever device you're using, or at the very least, just make the direct eye contact to the number that I'm asking you to find using the phrase that we covered in another earlier lesson video, wo ist, right? Where is 5? Where is 12? Okay, so and then we're just going to keep doing the same process with all the numbers. 8. Ja, diese Zahl heißt 8. So, wo ist die 8? Da. Wo ist die 5? Da. Wo ist die 8? Ja. Wo ist die 12? Richtig. Wo ist die 8? Jawohl. Und jetzt 4. 4. Wo ist die 4? Gut. Wo ist die 8? 8. Wo ist die 4? 4. Wo ist die 5? 5. Wo ist die 12? 12. Wo ist die 4? 4. Wo ist die 5? 5. Wo ist die 12? 12. Wo ist die 8? 8. Wo ist die 4? 4. Gut. Nun, 10. 10. 6. 6. Wo ist die 10? 10. Wo ist die 6? 6. Wo ist die 6? 6. Wo ist die 10? 10. 3. 3. Wo ist die 3? 3. Wo ist die 10? 10. Wo ist die 3? 3. Wo ist die 6? 6. Und jetzt 9. Wo ist die 9? 9. Wo ist die 10? 10. Wo ist die 3? 3. Wo ist die 9? 9. Wo ist die 6? 6. Wo ist die 9? 9. Wo ist die 3? 3. Wo ist die 10? 10. Wo ist die 3? 3. Wo ist die 9? 9. Wo ist die 6? 6. Wo ist die 3? 3. Oh, wo ist die 4? 4. Wo ist die 9? 9. Wo ist die 5? 5. Wo ist die 10? 10. Wo ist die 4? 4. Wo ist die 8? Jawohl, 8. Wo ist die 3? 3. Wo ist die 5? 5. Wo ist die 10? 10. Wo ist die 12? 12. Wo ist die 9? 9. Wo ist die 4? 4. Wo ist die 6? 6. Wo ist die 8? 8. Super. Diese Zahl heißt 2. 2. 1. 1. Wo ist die 1? 1. Wo ist die 2? 2. Wo ist die 2? 2. Wo ist die 1? 1. 7. 7. Wo ist die 7? 7. Wo ist die 1? 1. Wo ist die 7? 7. Wo ist die 2? 2. Wo ist die 1? 1. 11. 11. Wo ist die 11? Wo ist die 2? 2. Wo ist die 7? 7. Wo ist die 11? 11. Wo ist die 1? 1. Wo ist die 2? 2. Wo ist die 7? 7. Wo ist die 11? 11. Wo ist die 7? 7. Wo ist die 2? 2. Wo ist die 11? 11. Wo ist die 1? 1. Wo ist die 3? 3. Wo ist die 8? 8. Wo ist die 11? 11. Wo ist die 10? 10. Wo ist die 4? 4. Wo ist die 1? 1. Wo ist die 11? 11. Wo ist die 5? 5. Wo ist die 3? 3. Wo ist die 2? 2. Wo ist die 10? 10. Wo ist die 4? 4. Wo ist die 9? 9. Wo ist die 7? 7. Wo ist die 12? 12. Wo ist die 6? 6. Wo ist die 1? 1. Wo ist die 5? 5. Wo ist die 9? 9. So now say them in order with me. I'll say it, you repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Good, now say it backwards. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alright, so I can't do this with 11 and 12 because I only have 10 fingers, but I'm going to hold up my fingers and you say the number of whatever I'm holding up. Okay, ready? Here we go. 5, 10, 7, 1, 3, 8, 10, 5, 6, 2, 9, 7, 1, 3, 10, 2, 8. Good job. This is a long lesson, but I have a few numbers more that I want to teach you. Notice they're very close similarities, right? Where we're saying literally 3, like the concept of 3 and 10, 4 and 10, right? 5 and 10, right? This is so similar to how it works in English. Yeah, so in German we have 3, 10, 4, 10, 5, 10, 6, 10, 7, 8, 10, 19, and now a new number, 20. Okay, do notice that the S here is being dropped from sechs, right? We normally have an S there. It's being dropped for 16. And sieben, right? We're leaving out the N part and we're just saying 17. All right, super. Now, if we look at the tens, we have more patterns going on to help us out, with the exception of 30, which has the S set that makes an S sound. All the rest of these numbers are ending with sich, right? It's always that soft CH sound, right? Like we talked about in the pronunciation video, so that we have 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and then we get to 100 and 1000, right? Notice again the S being dropped here, and that we have shortened this to just sieb, not sieben. So now when you're counting from 20 to 30 or 30 to 40, so on and so forth, you have to know how to say, your 21, 22, 23, so on and so forth. And how that works in German is you have to say the second number of the pair first, okay? So you're saying literally 1 and 20, 2 and 20, 3 and 20, 4 and 20, right? So if we say all of this in German, then of course we start with 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Thanks for learning German numbers with me, and especially playing my numbers game. You are now ready to take the quiz that I created for this mini series with the lessons on manners, basic needs, pronunciation, and numbers. And after that, I hope you will continue learning with me here on YouTube.